using coolant, 200,000 gallons of said coolant to cool these 3 buildings. They intend to provide offsetting energy to essentially negate their demand. They haven't told us how, when, where it's going to be, but in other projects, they have built solar panels and other forms of energy creation, again, to offset their energy footprint. They also communicated Tier 4 backup generators to be used when the power grid is unable to keep these monsters running. Now, how would this benefit Big Beaver? In their information, if it is to be believed, it's intended to put a $1.4 billion investment through this project. Obviously, there's tax revenue to be realized through the property sale, as well as building permits. So that's revenue that goes straight to your county, straight to the council, that they would not have if the racetrack continued to be a racetrack. They communicated in their presentation that in the past, they have supported other local communities by assisting their police and fire departments, creating STEAM support through education, and then also other apprenticeship programs to try to train local talent to work in their plants. They state that there will be 1,500 to 2,000 badges going in and out of their buildings. That's 80 to 100 full-time employees, again, based on their presentation. I went through it again to drive it as accurate and fair to them as possible. One thing I think it's important to note is the racetrack employ more people full-time, and other independent businesses exist around it that obviously won't because of the track. So it's a good counterpoint, because we should be thinking about gain or loss of jobs, right? Now, Ken is way smarter than I am. Vocationally, he is a contractor, and he knows his stuff. So the question that he's going to answer is, what happens when a switch data center, what does it look like in Big Beaver? So he's gonna throw out some pretty crazy statistics.
Sure, absolutely. So Daniel spoke that on these 201,000 square foot buildings, now we have 3 of these buildings, that is 14 acres of buildings. And based on their rendering that they showed us at their infomercial that they had about a month ago, I'm estimating approximately 4 to 5 acres worth of generators. And I wanted to speak a little bit on these generators and the power itself. So I set a lot of these big generators in my line of business, and I looked into these large industrial scale generators. We know based on Switch's data that they are going to require 500 megawatts. Okay, so the largest generator that I could find that is commercially available right now is made by Kohler. And this generator produces 4 megawatts. And it is a 20-cylinder diesel engine. For any, again, like Dan said, for anybody that works on cars or is a gearhead, this particular generator is 6,300 cubic inches. They would need 125 of these generators to power this facility. And this particular Kohler generator, and we don't even know that this is the generator that they're going to use, but it's the largest available generator right now on the commercial market. These generators use 280 gallons of diesel fuel an hour. So if they're running all 125 of these units, that's 35,000 gallons of fuel for 1 hour. In 1 day's time, it's over 800,000 gallons of diesel fuel. Now, everybody knows that even with these new ultra-low sulfur Tier 4 generators, just imagine the amount of pollution that's going to go up into the air when they're running these things. and they will be running them. Also, based on the power itself, so I told you that we have, this facility is going to use 500 megawatts, okay? So if you translate that into your electric bill calls out kilowatt hours, and the kilowatt hours that you use. 1 megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. The average home in the United States uses 10,500 kilowatt hours per year. This facility will use 12,000 megawatt hours per day, which means this facility is going to use 1,140 homes annual consumption every day. Now in Big Beaver, based on our last census, we have 735 to 750 homes in our borough. So this facility every day is going to use more power than we use every year. And that's just astounding to me. And where are they going to get this power from? That's something that I would like for them to tell us. And I don't know that they have the answer for us. And as Dan spoke, one other item is they spoke about their closed loop system, and that 200,000 gallons of water is per building. So we've got 600,000 gallons of water total. Typical ratio for a closed loop system is very typical to what you put in your car. It's a 50-50 mixture. So 1.2 million gallons in this system. And what we don't know is how often this system needs service. These systems do need service from time to time. They need a total fluid exchange, typically at least once a year, potentially more. They also use several chemical agents in these systems, biocides, fungicides, and some heavy metal removers, which they haven't told us what they're gonna do with this water, or with this fluid, essentially. At that point, it's antifreeze. Where does this antifreeze go? This would potentially overwhelm Beaver Falls Water Authority. And not to mention, even when they process this, those chemicals are still going to go into the river. I think that's all I have for that portion.
Ken, with really encouraging news, right? Again, I apologize for the deadpan humor, it's all I got. So here's a slide I wanted to put in here, because these are the things that we do not know, and this very much parries with what Ken just communicated. What if Switch, and here's some things that I would also like to know. What happens if the Switch Data Center project isn't completed, right? What is the succession plan for that property? Does it become derelict? This is something that we have seen, and if you noticed, her name, Natalie, who was the PR person for Switch, was very proud to state that any built center has not closed. One of the great resources that we're pointed towards is a forum called Hold the Harm. There have been other Switch projects that have been announced but not completed, right? So anyone who's in marketing, you like to say what you want to be heard, but projects get canceled all the time. We keep hearing that in the news. Does Switch intend to engage local leadership outside of Big Beaver's council and their collective bargaining? How does the data center able to offset the loss of tourism revenue because of the closure of the track? What is the plan to generate that offsetting power? How will they equip your fire department and other first responders to a fire? Why did Switch keep our press from their town hall meeting? What is the disconnect in messaging between Big Beaver's council and Switch's representative, who stated that they've been in communication since November of last year? So these are questions we don't have answers to. But now we're going to pivot, first to listen to our friend Tim. He's going to give you a basic introduction as to his work and what he does, and then also provide you some insights from the conversations that we've had. Jot down any questions during his time, so that when Q&A occur, you can jump in with questions for Tim.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate all of you guys coming out here. It shows how much you care about your community and how willing you are to learn and figure out what can be done next. My name is Tim Fitchett. I am the legal director at Fair Shake Environmental Legal Services. We are a 501c3 nonprofit law firm. So I work in Pennsylvania, we have attorneys in Ohio, and I work down in West Virginia as well. And we support communities, we support nonprofits, and we support individuals with environmental harms through enforcement of Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, nuisance, trespass, and a whole bunch of municipal law. Because municipalities do actually have a good amount of power when it comes to controlling development in their borders. I want to call everybody's attention that I'm not going to be able to answer all of the questions that you may have tonight. I know all of you are probably just filled to the brim with them. We have put a considerable amount of time and resources into developing a lot of data center adjacent resources. So if you look up Fair Shake data centers, you will find a whole web page that has a ton of different resources for you to figure out where your community is in the process, what you might be able to do next. It's going to be a lot of reiterating the things that I talk about now. But I just do want to call your attention to that, as a huge amount of time and love and effort went into creating those resources for all communities. So one of the biggest questions that comes up with communities that are facing data centers is, what can my municipality actually do, right? Where is their power to do anything? And a lot of that depends on kind of where you are in the process. So municipalities do not have full overarching power to control development in their space. One of the things that they absolutely can't do, they were mentioning all those tier 4 generators, they can't do anything. The local municipality has no power to determine what happens with those generators as far as air emissions go, right? What's gonna happen when they flush all of those pipes out, right? That's not something that a municipality is able to control. They are preempted by state and federal government. They do not have that authority. The state governs what comes out of industrial pipelines. And so they may have to do that, but it's not something that you can ask your local government to do. That's a place where you can absolutely jump in down the line to make sure that that's done properly, that there's not pollutants going into your local streams, right, or into your local airshed. Where municipalities do have a lot of power is zoning and the ordinances related to that zoning. So, as it stands right now, my understanding is that there has not been any applications for this facility yet, right? There's no land development plans that have been given out. There's no applications for a conditional use or special exception. So your municipality right now actually has the power to change zoning. They have the power to say data centers are allowed, but they're only allowed in this area of town, right, in this industrial area of town. They could also make the requirements for having a data center that they have to do a report on electricity usage and how that might affect the local population. They could talk about water usage and how that might affect people's groundwater and make the company do those kinds of things. They can make them do noise ordinances, a noise report, right? Make sure that these things aren't going to be too loud, right? Especially when you have, how many generators was that running at one time?
125.
125 large tier 4 generators all running at one time, I don't know what that's going to do to the soundscape of the communities that are living in there. But the municipality would have the power to say, if you're going to do a data center, you have to give us one of those reports. And we can decide, based on that, if we think that it is going to be protective of the health, safety, and welfare of the community. They can add that kind of language into an ordinance, and that can give them the discretion to say, you know what, this isn't right for our community. This is too much, this is too bit. The problem is that they actually have to do that, right? They would have to start enacting those ordinances now. They would have to put in plans and say, hey, we want to update this. One of the things that you could push your council members to do is what's called a municipal curative amendment. So here in Pennsylvania, municipalities do not have the power to do what are called moratoria. In other states, they can straight up say, you're not allowed to do this. And I know Robin here is going to talk about the legislation that is currently making its way through the House in order to allow municipalities to do moratoria. What they do have the power under the municipality's planning code is to do a municipal curative amendment. They could say, literally tomorrow, they could say, we think that our ordinance, especially around data centers, needs to be worked on. And once they say that, they can get 6 months to work on it, to figure out what would be better and what needs to be in place before a data center comes into their community. That is a power that they absolutely have under the municipality's planning code, and they can do it relatively easily if they wanted to. That's where a lot of the public support and public outcry is going to come in, because they need to be convinced that this is the right call, right? To do that, to at least just give a little bit of reprieve while the community figures out what the next step is. Other things that they can add in is making it, I mentioned the conditional uses, right? Making a special exception, making it a little bit more difficult as they go through, right? What reports are there, giving themselves discretion to maybe shut things down. Those are all things that are within the power of the local municipality. When an application does come in, are you planning on talking about commenting? Yeah, okay, fantastic. Then I will leave that and not bore you with 2 rounds of comment and talk. All I will say about the commenting is that you can, you want to base it on science and legal bases, right? I don't want this here is lovely sentiment for them to use their discretion. It doesn't hold much weight when it comes to the courts, right? But giving them a legal basis, they failed to do this thing. And that can be substantive, something that is in the ordinance that they have failed to do, or it can be procedural. They didn't do this right. They didn't put the application in and give us enough time to work with it or look at it. They held the meetings in secret and just kind of came out and did it, right? So these are all little pressure points where you might be able to pressure and change the course of this. Right to know requests is another great place to use your power as citizenry. You have the right to ask for any of those communications, right? I saw one of the questions was, one of the members is saying that there was no communications, and the developer is saying, yes, there were. Y'all have a right to those, right? These are your elected leaders. They are your employees. You're the public, and they don't get to have emails in private, like, kind of period, right? There are obviously some exceptions for that, but I suggest, put that out there. Try and get that information, because it's important. The other place I just want to kind of call attention to that is a whole bunch of stuff that is outside of the scope of sort of the municipal immediacy of these applications is permitting, right? As I mentioned before, your municipality can't say they can't have tier 4 generators. They can't say they can only have 40, right? All of that is going to be handled through the DEP. The municipality just does not have that authority. But that means once if permissions are granted at the local level, they're going to have to go out and get these other permissions. And all of those other permissions is a place for you to get engineers and scientists and comment and get your voice heard in all of these other forms, because they need to get every single piece lined up before they can open this facility. So, stormwater management, if they're gonna have any industrial discharge from flushing those pipes with the glycol and all of those sorts of things, you know, that's a place that you can check and say, how often is this happening? What's this gonna do to our local ecology? Let's make sure that this is done right, right? The air permitting, again, don't know how many they're planning, you know, a couple hundred that they're, or 100 plus that they're planning on putting in there. That might title, we have not seen yet, but that might trigger air permitting requirements. And even Title V air permitting requirements, which are very strict. So these are places to just be paying attention, seeing what's coming down the pipeline. You've got amazing people that are doing the hard work of like looking and checking and seeing if any of these things have been applied for. But they will need your support to comment, show the DEP that you guys don't want these kinds of things, and ultimately for if any of these things need to be appealed and taken into the courts, which can, you know, drag things out, they'll need financial support to do that as well. So those are all these pressure points that are coming down the pike. And I just want to make sure, I have one other little line, now I'm locked out. Yeah, and we'll leave it at that, and I will pass it over to Robin.
Actually, I love that you ended on permitting. Maybe we could.
Yeah, great segue over to Amanda with Three Rivers Waterkeeper.
I don't have a formal presentation either. I'm just gonna log in. Everybody staying cool? Whoever passed out the paper plates, brilliant, excellent innovation, loving this. Just want to take a moment. It's so happy to be here and meet everyone. I'll see a few familiar faces from some of the shell work and then also East Palestine. And I recognize these beautiful yellow shirts from Harrisburg, which we'll talk about at the end. Without further ado, here's Amanda. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be here and express your questions, concerns, and interests. I am Amanda Zaner. I work with Three Rivers Waterkeeper as a policy advocate. I do a lot of permit reviewing, comment writing, and such. And so I kind of have fit into this in terms of providing that angle. Three Rivers Waterkeeper, we monitor water quality along the Allegheny, Ohio, and Monongahela rivers and their respective tributaries. And so we do look at big industries and their outfalls, their stormwater pollution, their management, and kind of communicate with communities and our own monitoring on our team to understand how facilities are upholding their permits and advocating for more stringent monitoring or increased parameters as needed. Some broad permits related to water quality use in Pennsylvania that could apply are, like Tim mentioned, stormwater erosion and sediment control permits. Those will come in for construction phase as well as the operation of the switch facility if it keeps following through with permit applications. Potentially wastewater permits if a facility decides to do wastewater treatment and processing on site. We've seen this with the Homer City generation site development plans. But each site is kind of independent and unique with how they've brought proposals for functioning throughout the state. There's also water obstruction and encroachment permits for if a facility is going to be in a floodplain, affecting streams, wetlands. Where this facility is proposing to be on the racetrack, you would look for potential around just total footprint of impervious structure, stormwater management and such for those operations. And then the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection does have reporting thresholds for total water uses, as well as requesting reporting for water withdrawal, and this could include any facilities' cooling demands or initial intakes for operational needs as well.
I looked in a bit to Switch's data center proposal, as well as a couple of their other sites in other states throughout the country. While it feels like there's so much happening all at once in Pennsylvania, there has been a lot of development in other states where they are seeing environmental impacts from existing facilities. And so while sometimes the language that these facilities share still is a little blurred and non-clear, we've been able to see from other permits some of their impacts. So Switch does propose to use a cooling system that's a hybrid of air and liquid cooling as mentioned. This would not mean that there is no water use nor no water loss. As mentioned before, asking the developer, asking your township supervisors, your county commissioners, keep asking those questions of when they say there's no water loss, what do they mean? Where are they getting their water supply from? In Springdale area, with that data center proposal with Tech Fusion Center, they proposed using municipal water supply for an initial water intake amount, and local officials in that area have pushed to say no for municipal water withdrawal for initial intake and repeat infills, so that's still in flux, but it's something that a municipality can have say in providing wastewater supply. Another possible question to raise is, again, around what do they mean when it's a closed loop system or there's no water loss or evaporation. One of Switch's other facilities located in Nevada, which is kind of like a multi-use facility for a lot of tech companies in one space, they use a 16-mile pipeline to take treated wastewater from the Truckee River Meadows Water Reclamation Facility to supply into their facility. And so they do require treatment, they do require chemical additives, those glycol mixtures, some coolant systems and refrigerants contain PFAS and other chemicals, and can also lead to metal effluents as well. And so really pushing those questions of, okay, can you tell us what chemical additives or other things you plan to source for the system would be important. There's also been some conversation around the diesel generators versus fuel cells, and I'm no expert in this area, but the company does push themselves as a more sustainably and net zero organization, and they advertise using fuel cells as part of their facility's energy infrastructure, which doesn't require combustion of fuel, but it still uses water and has evaporation impacts for water vapor and other potential impacts, as well as questions around if they are getting rid of this water, replacing it yearly, however often they need, because it will need to be done at some point, because there's only so many times that the system can be running through the equipment before there's too much chemical buildup of dissolved solids and such. Where are they sending wastewater? Are they treating it? Are they giving it to municipal authority or landfill to treat? And yeah, again, using your questions, keep talking to your local officials. I can tell you, with working with concerned residents of Western PA based in Homer City around that data center development, they've pushed over the last few months to get more and more answers, when originally the developers at that site were very close-lipped. They've talked more with their commissioners to ask questions about local ordinances, things like community benefit agreements and other topics, to just keep the conversation going, so that way there's not just quiet applications of permits and passing through. At Waterkeeper, we look at what's called the Pennsylvania Bulletin weekly. It gets posted, and the PA Department of Environmental Protection will post permit applications. And so we use that as a way to track and flag when a facility is in the process of applying for a permit, and that normally gives us time to request files from the Department of Environmental Protection to learn more about the facility and any information they have on it as well. And then when an application is posted to the bulletin, that opens a public comment period. Normally with a lot of these new permits, with the water area, it's about 30-day period for a new permit. And so that's where the use of technical comments and questioning around the permit, or around studies, around impact to the area are really relevant, as well as calling for a public hearing. If you don't feel like there's enough information supplied by that permit draft or application, a public hearing can be requested in most cases, and is an opportunity to have an increased forum held to further the conversation and allow people to apply additional comments as well. I'll wrap it up there.
Amanda, one quick question. That public commenting, is that guaranteed?
So for most permits, yes. Through any permit through Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, when a permit application or draft permit is posted to the PA Bulletin, that triggers a mandatory public comment period. Sometimes there are construction-related stormwater permits that are run through county conservation districts, and so that doesn't always have the same process, but the majority of permits will have a public comment period.
Cool. Thank you.
Let's hand it off.
Thank you so much. Just give me 1 second, I have to plug in.
Very high tech.
Exception.
Yes.
Thank you. Don't want to see me being like,
I'm like a terrible man.
that's okay, just stay at 12%.
Thank you all again so much for hanging in there. My name is Robin Lesko. I am the Western Pennsylvania Organizing Manager for Food and Water Watch and Food and Water Action. Food and Water Watch is a national organization based out of DC that is committed to strong empowerment of protection for food and water, and also the third, climate. I would like to say that even though we're based in DC, I am born and raised in the southwestern Pennsylvania. All of my family are either coal miners or mill workers. My dad was the first one to break the mold, and he went to be an electrician. So I'm also really proud because Food and Water Watch's municipal ordinance project, also affectionately known as MOP, is what started in southwestern Pennsylvania, where we focus specifically on organizing around zoning and educating folks on their local zoning power and how they can organize around that. It started off for being for oil and gas, to make sure that something's not right next to your home. And now we've moved forward onto data centers, and so it's a pleasure to be here. I will talk kind of macro. Basically, I'm just going to reiterate a little bit what Tim and Amanda have said, and then we'll move on to the legislative pieces and some of the things that have been happening in the past few months. Next slide, please. Taking action. Thank you. Next slide, please. Alrighty, since you all actually are magnificently organized already, I have to give massive kudos to all of you for a lot of these steps are already done, but it's always nice to remember them, and it's also nice as we gather new folks in and want to be involved. So we have to figure out how our decisions are made in our community. I just want to check right now, under your ordinance, is currently data centers, is it a permitted use? Do we know this?
It's called a special regulation.
A special regulation.
Yes.
Interesting.
Essentially a permitted use.
Essentially permitted use. So what we know normally for permitted uses is that means the power is in your zoning hearing officer, and as long as it checks all the boxes, it goes through and there isn't a public hearing process. I'm gonna be a little bit spicy in case people don't have a chance to ask this question later. If we do have a chance to, as Tim said, enact the curative amendment process here to show that the data center ordinance is actually not valid and is not protected enough, one of the highest level protections you can have is what's called a conditional use. Because then this is where it has to have a public hearing at the local level where you as the residents will be able to weigh in, you'll be able to achieve something called party status and object to the application, ask the hard questions, and as well as comment on the process, rather than it just going through as a typical permitted use. More on that later. I know it's hot, a lot of hot air is blowing around. So we want to identify our decision makers, like we just said. If it stays as a permitted use, your ordinance for data centers, it's your zoning hearing officer. Whereas if it's something as a conditional use, that would be then up to your board. And my apologies, council, supervisors, commissioners, council. Your council members will make that decision, but you'll have the most public input. And then there's special exception, and that's for your zoning hearing board, but that's for another day.
Next page.
Yeah. I think we want to move on to there because a lot of this, what you've already done, we have petitions here in the House. And as we're going along, we also are contacting our local council members and showing that opposition and not just simply being like, what happened, and already here it is. So, urging our state and local elected officials to sign on for stronger legislation, for stronger things, that shows an incredible show of power. I urge you to seek out, if you don't already know, who your local, for your state and Senate reps, your local reps, to say, if we can't have any kind of sweeping, since we can't have any sweeping legislation at the local level, we have to deal with a very specific zoning process at the local level, because the good, bad, and the ugly is that we can't ban anything in Pennsylvania yet, but that means you have the power to say where it goes, how big it is, everything like that. You have that incredible power, and it's important for us to take it back and not just leave it in the hands of a permitted use. What I will mention in just a few moments is some of the legislation that's happening, and you'll see twofold. Some of it is dealing with moratoria, which is not a ban, but it's a pause on something. And then there are also legislation being introduced where it's more of regulations. Next slide, please. Oh, no, sorry, actually go back, you were already on the ball. I would like to give a shout out that last Tuesday in Harrisburg, we held a huge rally entitled PA is Not for Sale. And I am so thrilled to see that some of our members here at BVA were here for that rally and made a very strong presence. This rally was over 200 frontline residents that came and spoke their story and their successes and the uphill situations that they're facing in Pennsylvania as the absolute juggernaut of data centers have come in. And they are just assuming that communities are just going to lay down or just be like, it's fine, or they are preying on, you don't know what you don't know. And we're not gonna do that anymore. So we got to hear from residents from Southwest Pennsylvania talking about Springdale, from northeastern Pennsylvania up at Archbald, with one of the most gigantic data centers I have seen proposed for Pennsylvania, let alone other states. Also, we heard from down in southeast Pennsylvania in Royersford, where East Vincent data center actually has been in the old Penhurst penitentiary, which that's insulting. That is a huge ghost tour industry. So I was like, you really want to build a data center on a haunted penitentiary? But okay, here it is.
That's
But
like wrong on so many levels.
it is very wrong on so many levels, and the residents have, supercharged ghosts, let's do that. The great news is that the residents have pushed back. They have pushed back through zoning, knowing their rights, knowing these processes, nitpicking the details. I don't want to say the devil's in the details, the dance, and the saving grace is in the details. So the more that you want to swan dive into that, the better, because your timelines, your details of the application, and also the processes, that's where you can win at the local level, and then you can start these timelines. And since sometimes we don't want to have to worry about it all the time at the local level, there is legislation introduced that I'm going to talk mostly about, which is, if I may, here on this page, this lovely lady in pink is Senator Katie Booth. Across the state, she has introduced legislation, Senate Bills 1359, which would put a pause, a 3-year pause, on siting and permitting of hyperscale data centers in the state of Pennsylvania, which would give the time for all local municipalities to update their zoning ordinances, get better educated on what is actually happening with the data centers come to town, just as Amanda had touched on, like what is happening in other states, hearing a lot about, Data Center Valley out in Loudoun County, Virginia, so, which is currently the data center capital of the world. And more data is coming in about the effects of having a data center nearby you on so many different levels. There are also other pieces of legislation. There's companion legislation coming out by Rep. Jamie Walsh across the state, who is proposing 16-month moratoria. There's also one by Rep. Paul Friel, who actually might get voted on tomorrow, in which it would give municipalities a 6-month break to update their ordinances. I appreciate we align with Rep. Friel on a lot of things, but that 6-month pause, we already have that by right in the state of Pennsylvania. So when something like this happens, and a lot of the times where we try to find the middle ground on in the pause and the regulation, this is the time to go bold. This is the time to say we want so many years to stop this, that we want to know what's going on. We want to make sure that our families are safe, that our air, water, and communities are protected from this, because they are banking on us not knowing this and just letting it pass by. Build first, ask questions later. Next slide, please. Oh, good, I already ran my mouth on that. Next slide, please. And I ran my mouth on that too. I have a very specific text for that. Next slide, please. Here it is. If you would like Pennsylvania-specific updates on legislation and actions you can do for PA, not sending you all around the country, nothing like that at all, or if you want to get in contact with me and my team, although I have a ton of business cards and I will be happy to talk your ear off any time of the day, please text data centers to 23321. If you just open up your phone now, due to 23321 data centers, that'll hook you up with the list. You will not be an onslaught of asking for donations or anything like that. I was very specific about this because we want to make sure our communities are taken care of. And any of the responses you will get are not AI generated, they are completely made by a person, because while we were in Pennsylvania, while we were in Harrisburg, somebody said, oh, you're asking me to do a text opt-in and then it's gonna be these AI responses. I'm like, no, we're spending a lot of time on the if-then to make sure that it's a whole person answering this, directing you, and making sure we get what you need, not what we think you need. So thank you so much for your time. I look forward to talking more.
Now, as we transition, can we give these guys a round of applause? I was talking with our friends from the news, because they know better than us, what's going on with other communities and how they're coalescing. Correct me if I'm wrong, other communities haven't done a town hall meeting like this, where it's literally the community leading the meeting, bringing subject matter experts to bear, to get educated, get informed, and to build out a plan. So this is pretty unique. This is very much because of Big Beaver Alliance. So everyone who's in yellow right now, I'd like to give everyone a round of applause. So as we start to just wrap up, and we're doing so good on time, so.
Can we turn on the lights?
In 1 second. We're so close. So the biggest question I want to ask for tonight, where do we go from here? What can we do? Okay, so this is where we have to stick the landing. Okay. Today's meeting is a big first step. It shows the level of organization happening in Big Beaver. If you heard one resounding theme from Amanda, from Robin, from Tim, is that companies like Switch, and elected officials like your council are banking on your not doing anything. I need you to sit in that for a moment. They are banking on your not doing a thing. Your being here means, I think, something different is in our future. Can we agree on that? Right? Now, there have been 12, 14, 20 very brave local souls that when we emotion-hurt car racers complained, right, reached out to us and said, hey, you found out some cool things. What can we do? This is their hard work, right? I hope that you sitting in these chairs can help us in what will indefinitely be a long journey and forward, but an important one if we want to keep Big Beaver the community that we love. Can I get an amen? Amen. Okay. Now, we know of legislation, and we'll talk to Robin later about how we can get plugged into that statewide form of remedy. But the things we can do locally are things like fundraise, because as you can hear from Tim, we're going to have a fight on our hands, and if we all work together, it can be won, okay? It can. Other communities are doing it. The other thing that we can be doing is starting to advocate and vocalize through reaching out to our state and local officials. We all have a voice, we need to use it, right? That means we can't just complain to our spouse and then turn on whatever sitcom CBS is trying to sell us tonight, right? There are representatives from your state officials among you who are listening. That speaks to the quality of who they are as men and women. That also speaks to how important what we are all doing tonight is. The other thing that is super important is to continue to go to council meetings and talk to your council members. Those who have gone to meetings know that there's a certain kind of vibe in those meetings that's fine, but go to your planning meetings. Show through your being engaged how important this is. Amen? Amen. Amen. So what I want to do is we are now closing the presentation. Leah, if you could pop the lights on. All right, everyone, close your eyes. Open them up. We're all good? We feeling good? Awesome. So my hope is, Matt, can you grab the extra microphone? Have it ready. What we're going to do is Q&A, right? Raise your hand. If preferable, you can come over here. That way we can see your beautiful face on camera, which is important, so those who can't be here can see you. If you can't, have just Matt walk over. But this is when we start to do Q&A. So raise your hand, whoever wants to start. I know I want to start. Gosh, so many different questions. Robin, you gave us a phone number to get opt into for regular messaging. Could you also let everyone know what other resources are available through your organization that they could use to reach out to their congressmen and women to advocate for Katie and other pieces of legislation?
Alrighty, thank you so much. So the number that you'll want to text to is 23321, and the subject will be data centers. That will plug you in to current actions that are happening, and one of them is to support Senator Booth's 3-year moratorium, Senate Bill 1359. Other resources that we can offer, if you look up Food and Water Watch Municipal Ordinance Project, there are resources there. Also, just if you would like to look up Food and Water Watch, how to stop a data center toolkit. I will say that most of that is pointed towards the national level because we were the first organization to call for a national moratorium on data centers. However, there are some basic tools there, and also if you have any questions on how to tailor that, please contact me. I have a plethora of business cards But I will say again, my email address is rlesko@fwwatch.org. Do not worry about remembering that. I have lots of business cards if you would like to chat later. Also, there's a phone number. I'm so sorry, I know that we have the lights on, but I would love to plug in because I forgot this part because we literally created it at 4:30 this afternoon. And I will run far, far away from the other mic to avoid the feedback. So right now, like we said, State Rep Paul Friel's bill might be voted on tomorrow out of committee, which is a 6-month moratorium on data centers. Like we said, that's great. We already have that bylaw in the state of Pennsylvania through, Tim said, the curative amendment process. What we are pushing for is, since Senator Booth's bill has been in the local government committee now for a good month or so, it is time for her bill to be pushed as well. So if you have time, and I know that's a little blurry there, but I can also have this on my computer the whole night. If you call Senator Rosemary Brown, who is one of the co-sponsors for Senator Booth's bill, Senator Vogel was a co-sponsor, and then he took his name off because of pressure, so pressure him again to put his name back on as a co-sponsor. If you feel like having homework tonight, be like, Senator Vogel, where are you? But also call Senator Dawn Kiefer. She is the chair of the local government committee, and to push for Senator Booth's bill to be voted out of committee so that we can start the process of getting this voted on and voted yes in the Senate so that we can be fully protected for 3 years. We can leave that up, and then, like I said, I will have my laptop up for this number and any other kind of contact points that you would like. Did I touch on everything for the question?
For Senator Katie's legislation, is it just Democrats who are pushing this, or?
No, thank you for pointing that out. Senator Rosemary Brown is a Republican in her district. As I just said, Senator Vogel in our district here, Republican. There is a lot of bipartisan support for this because everybody is affected in this in the same exact way. You know, we might not be in the same boat, but we are certainly in the same storm. And the same similarities coming over and over again, where our local authority, our sense of place, our attachment to things are being overruled by out-of-state industries who claim that they want to be a good neighbor, but they keep us in the dark and they take away our resources, and they don't even give us a pretty gift at the end. So I can't even say that we're reaching across the aisle. There is no aisle. There is no spoon. Show my age. There is no aisle when it comes to this. I have never seen so many people from so many diverse political, cultural backgrounds come together for this sort of fight. So thank you for reminding me to bring that up.
I got a pretty loud voice, so.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I've heard a lot of things, read a lot of articles and stuff about a lot of these data centers too. Apparently these generators aren't exclusively used for emergency situations. A lot of them are actually running full time, and they actually violate a lot of EPA and other regulations, mostly in the southern states. But there's a good documentary on YouTube if you want to watch it. I think it was done by public, but we saw what all data centers don't want you to see. And basically, they went in with infrared cameras showing when these data centers were actually running the generators. And it was, they said they weren't running them. They could actually see from heat signals that they were running them constantly. Apparently, that's a huge problem. And also, I've also heard other things where a lot of them claim they'll be closed loop systems, and then they end up not being closed loop. So,
Absolutely.
So on that, the generator question, generally, when a facility is going to be applying for an air permit, they have to initially start out with, these things are running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That is the standard to figure out if you are a major source, subject to very, very strict bids, or a minor source, which is smaller. Now, what some of these data centers are trying to do is say, well, these are just for emergencies, and so we don't need to have them at all. Yell about that, right? They should be subject to the standard, which is running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Now, they can get what's called a synthetic minor permit. they can drop themselves under the thresholds for that major permitting by saying, we're only going to use them 2 hours a day, 2 days a week, right? But that comes with recording and reporting requirements. They have to tell the DEP, this is how often we have used it, to make sure that they stay under those limits. So bringing that up, right? Letting the DEP know, hey, this is not what is supposed to happen here, right? You can't just say these are for an emergency only. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, that that is a pressure point and absolutely a place where the community can fight back.
Let's get our microphone.
What I'm concerned about is, with a lot of these companies, as we all know, there are rules with the Department of Environmental Protection Agency. They're not allowed to exceed certain levels of pollution, air, water, whatever it might be. But yet they do. And it ends up, it's cheaper for them to pay the fines than to correct the problem and quit polluting. And so, just like the cracker plant as one example, you know. So that's a big concern of mine, because it happens, and we all know it happens. We can't believe anything that they say. But I have a question about the mayor. Where is the mayor in all of this? I mean, does the mayor have any power?
Yeah, let's go back to Tim, because that's a legal question.
Yeah, so on the first point, it is super frustrating when these companies go out. So one of the reasons why it's really important to comment and talk about permits as they're coming out is because you can say, hey, these are the numbers that you're running. This isn't accurate at all, right? Put more stringent requirements on it. This is what our engineer is saying, and the DEP may respond and lower their limits. After that, though, it does become the DEP has to permit on trust, right? They have to permit based on what the application says. They can't say, well, we think that you're going to violate it, and so we're not going to grant it. They're just not allowed to do that. That's where I come in, right? And plenty of other wonderful attorneys that are doing this work to try and prevent the problem after the fact, right? And Three Rivers Waterkeeper will be out there on the rivers taking samples and saying, hey, you said you were only gonna put X amount of arsenic into the river, and look at our sample, right? And then we can sue based on that and hopefully get a fine that is more financially harmful to them than just doing the right thing in the first place. As far as your second question in regards to the mayor, as far as I understand the setup in Big Beaver, he's not gonna have too much power. He's gonna have voice power to the council, but they're gonna be the ones that really have the votes. Does he have a vote on the council itself? She, sorry, I apologize. Very sorry.
50-50 shot. My understanding is that, which is
She does not have a
tiebreaking.
Tiebreaking vote, okay. Yeah, so she'll have the voice to say, I think you should vote X, one way or the other, but then it just comes down to that, occasional power, the same power that, what the VP has in the House and Senate, right? Just come in those cases, so still worth pressuring, by all means, but. Another thing I just don't want to forget about, because it can be really important, we're talking about convincing your local representatives in council, coming in there, and for BBA and those groups, fundraising is really important. T-shirts are a great way to support an organization, and if you all go in to the council all wearing those same things, that shows unified voice, it shows organization. So it's two birds with one stone. Pick up one of those bright yellow t-shirts and make it that, the council members have to put on sunglasses because there's so many of you coming into that next meeting. So just a pitch for how effective that can be for messaging and community building.
And something I want to mention, then Marty can jump in. That's also a really big piece of why we're doing this tonight, right? There's a really big reason why we wanted to talk to every news channel. We have recordings going to every journalist. The reason why that is that we're doing all of this for council and your mayor to see and witness, to recognize, again, you guys aren't going quiet, right? You guys are going to make sure your voice is heard and well represented. That also communicates something to Switch, right? Because when they have put in centers in the past, no one knew what a data center meant. They only saw the benefits. Oh, you mean you can put investment in my schools, you can put investment in my fire department, you can put into my police department, right? We know those are critical concerns here. You know, one of the things that I came to understand, which is very important to you, and which makes sense, right? In November, there was a big question about the relationship between council and your fire department. And you all showed up, right? It scared your council, right? And action was taken. Now, I'm not saying it's been restorative, but at least there's been some kind of bridge established there, right? So that's one of the most important things in all of this. And it's not just council meetings, it's planning meetings. Go to public meetings. Provide witness, right? It is a form of accountability, and your elected officials are also your neighbors, right? So when you go and show your disapproval, we hope that that means new form of action, new form of transparency. Cindy and others have gone to neighboring councils. I go to Bellevue council meetings. It is a different kind of meeting, right? It's collaborative, it's teamwork, it's how do we roll up our sleeves and do positive things. Was it, remind me the town that we were talking about earlier.
Well, when I went to New Beaver's council meeting, I must give kudos to you guys, because not only was I not timed, I was an outsider, and they wanted to hear what I had to say. They wanted to hear what the residents there had to say. And the meeting lasted 12 to 10 o'clock because we stayed for their work session where they wrote 24 pages of ordinances to protect their residents and their community. I just went to, where did we go the other night? Mahoning. They had residents help write the ordinances. They were passing these into law. It was a hearing, the whole bit. Attorneys, court stenographer, but they also, when a resident wanted to speak, they had them come up and say, here, use our mic so everybody can hear. I went to the commissioners' meetings. They told me that they would never ever time a Beaver County resident. They let me speak. They let others speak. And I just want to thank all of you for showing up, even the residents that aren't in Big Beaver, because they're not putting a bubble around us. It's going to affect all of us. And it's so important that just not Big Beaver residents stand together, that we stand together as a county. We need to stand together as a county. And yes, we're fundraising back there. Paula had 70 dozen cookies baked and donated, Christmas cookies, the good ones, okay? They are the Buckeyes, there's nut cups, all that in there. We're doing that to get us money to help get him, to help us get curative prevention. I know I'm saying it wrong, but we need that. We need to stick together with our neighboring communities. There's somebody that comes to the meetings that lives in New Beaver. She is 100 yards from Pit Race's property line. I'll still always call it Pit Race, from the property line. I live on Walls Run Road. It's going to affect her 10 times more than it's going to affect me. And we just have to stick together. We can't say, oh, she's from New Beaver. Oh, well. No, we have to stick together. But as they said, other meetings I've been going to, because I've been asked to go to them. I'm not just that bored in life. I have 5 grandkids, okay? And I have to borrow a truck or get a ride because my grandson, since I had my knee replacement, he's had my truck. They've asked us to come and talk, and they want to hear what we say. So when we have our meetings up here, especially Big Beaver residents, come, show up with us. Show up with us. I don't even care if you speak, it's in numbers. I'm sorry, I went off. School teacher, okay?
Thank you so much for that, Cindy. Really quick, you brought up a wonderful point about local municipalities working with the county level as well. So as we heard, Springdale was approved by the borough, but it is not a done deal. There are lots of processes that are still going on, one of which is it has to be approved through Allegheny County through something called their SALDO, their Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance. So, and those kind of go hand in hand with zoning, but it's a little bit different. It's like how the land's gonna be developed versus very specifically districts and uses and things like that. And so that developer for Springdale has to check all the boxes according to the county level SALDO before that this project can be approved. And I mean, no, spoiler alert, I don't think they're gonna make it. But don't quote me on that, lots of things happen, but this is why it's not just, as soon as you see something approved and you're like, oh, it's over, it is not over. It is not over until it's over, and that's another reason why everybody working together within the county is so imperative, because it is not over and you can take it to as high as come to show that you're not just laying down and accepting it for what it is, so, thank you.
Okay, and one other thing, because I don't need a mic because I am a teacher. I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing it for my 5 grandkids. You all have grandkids or kids. This is who this is for. I mean, I'm on the downhill side. So, but my grandkids are young. This is what we're fighting for, is our future generations.
We'll go here, and then we'll go to Mark.
I'm about a mile and a half from the proposed site from the, my personal concern would be our well water and the noise. I don't have a vague idea how much noise is it. I mean, I have animals.
Unfortunately, nobody does right now. We know that our zoning ordinance currently states that they can't exceed 75 decibels at the property line. But that's pretty loud.
So we will hear it. If we're 2 miles away.
Absolutely,
We'll be hearing it.
absolutely. 75 decibels is essentially listening to a shop vac all the time.
One thing I want to mention, so hopefully this microphone is more agreeable. It is not. I'll use my big boy voice. So in November of last year, we had kind of this moment within, like I said, pit race group, like we knew our track was gone. And we internally were at this moment of, well, why do we keep showing up if when we show up to council meetings, we're not being heard, and we're not, you know, what is the point, right? Time is our most valuable resource, let's not waste it. And a friend of mine's from Virginia got me in touch with a family friend. Her name's Gray, and was an attorney for civil, because a data center moved into her town of Loudon, then became an activist anti-data center. What activated her was her 2 sons, who were out of no particular order, just started acting up. Their grades get worse, they're anxious, there's all these different things that are happening, and as a parent, you know, there's so much going on in the world, can't pay attention to everything. Why are my kids acting up? Why are they not sleeping well? The thing about the noise that these data centers make is not the volume. I know we were loud. I'll put my hands up. My car is stupid loud. I'm sorry. You had to listen to it for a couple of years. On me, right? That said, it's the hertz. It's how the sound vibrates. It will shake your community. It's like a low-level earthquake. So in Gray's case, the reason why she had to leave her home was that if she put her hands flat on the kitchen counter, her home was shaking. She could feel it in her hands. And that shake was shaking her boys awake at night, not letting them go to sleep. And that was affecting them. And so that's, now, what we have heard from Switch is that they're proactive in creating sound borders to try to prevent that. But here's the reality, right? I know that you guys have had loud neighbors in the past. We are not like that. And that is something that, when we talk about the protections and how the ordinance is written, and correct me if I'm wrong, as the ordinance is currently written, the accountability is reactive. How the ordinance is written is that they cannot affect change until after it's been built.
I just want to bring up that documentary I mentioned earlier. That gets into the whole sound thing too. People actually moved because they couldn't stay there any longer.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And it wasn't like, you know, you heard it like it was just this, like I say, it's this frequency that.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, Marty's been super patient. I want to get to him, and then we'll come over here.
And then Miss Miller raised her hand back there.
Yes, it was regarding. I echo what our hero teachers said, all our teachers are our heroes, about we're doing this for our children and their children. And Big Beaver Borough is graying, and
I want you to say it to that camera.
which camera?
One over there, Marty.
Big Beaver Borough is graying, and we depend on younger families to come in to keep our tax base. And we're so happy that during the last year, we had a young couple become our neighbors on the left, another couple on the right. The one on the right said they moved from Beaver Falls because with their young kids, they couldn't take all the street noises and were running out in traffic. Well, there's a real concern, and there's scientific reasons because of the noises that the data center can discourage young families from moving in and can even force families that have moved here already to move out. So we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot by saying we need more people to come in for our better tax base, but we're going to chase them out at the same time. Now, having said all that, my personal interest is that I have family, besides myself and my wife, that live in Big Beaver Borough, and I keep up my energy at my age knowing that I'm around to help the grandkids. But it goes beyond that. It goes, I know a lot of things related to this that a lot of people don't know for a couple reasons. One reason is I had served on the Big Beaver Borough Planning Commission until less than a year before council disbanded the Planning Commission in terms of a planning committee, which is made up of council members. It's like they wanted to streamline by not having to go through a planning commission, and they've done that with the planning committee. Secondly, I have a scientific background. I'm a retired scientist, so I understand exactly what's going on. And Switch understood that too by the questions I had when they were here. So they agreed, when I sent them an email, to have a video chat with the two of them that were here, Steve Roberts and Natalie Mitchell. And this is where I have to speak with their shakes, because I'm on the spot. I have information I want to share with everybody, but I was warned by Switch. To be in that video call, I had to agree to and I have it right on my phone, I haven't deleted it. They said they will prosecute me to the full extent of the law if I share any of that discussion with anybody. So, do you have any feedback to that?
Did you sign an NDA?
What I did was, maybe it's an NDA in different words, and I have it on my phone, but all I signed was the agreement that in order to have the video chat with them, I would not disclose anything we talked about to other people, or they would prosecute me to the full extent of the law.
Well, you're going to jail, because you sharing this with all.
Exactly, but I haven't spoken about the technical things that they discussed with me that are really concerning. Secondly,
Were you on the planning committee at the time?
I was never on a planning committee, I was on a planning commission, big difference.
Were you on the planning commission at the time of that?
No.
The planning commission-
Marty hasn't been in that role for several years.
Okay.
The planning commission, again, was disbanded by the council within months after I left it. I left it for interesting reasons, but we're not gonna get into that now. So that is one legal matter. Here's the second legal matter. The way the ordinance 245, which is our zoning ordinance, was expressly written so that, as we heard, it would go through as a permitted use with some special requirements. The special requirements are, just like an eggshell compared to the egg. It's not the substance of what we need. And the bigger problem with this special requirement is, I think somebody mentioned today, there's no review like if you had special exceptions or conditional use. So here's my next legal problem. This is like playing three-dimensional chess with Switch, because they have the ability to shut down any discussion based on ordinance 245. So if we just went ahead with a curative approach, like we heard, they could decide to preempt it by pulling the trigger. So I did have some legal advice that you can combine that with something else, but I don't want to give away my cards in case Switch is listening. So can you address both points, both legal issues, as far as how I'm in the middle of things?
Is that a personal conversation that you had after?
Probably not something to have on TV. Come up and chat with me afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, everyone, we're gonna take fundraising for Marty's bail money. But also, a big part of this about the fundraising is, and Tim and Fairshake have been incredibly gracious in offering us his, and let's also, again, Robin, Amanda, Tim, these are brilliant people who are taking their Monday night to be with us. So again, I couldn't be happier or more proud. Thank each and every one of you. You're all mercenaries in my mind, but for good. One of the reasons why we're fundraising is so that when you have to ask that question to an attorney, it can be a covered cost, right? Now, he's a good human, he might just do it to be a good human. But everything that you're asking, we have that resource to go to. That's a private conversation, but one that we'll have a conversation about later. Because I don't know about you, I appreciate, Marty, your bravery in sharing that. Because I think everyone here, our hair just stood.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a Vietnam War veteran, and this is nothing And the last thing I have to say is, everybody, please come out to the Thursday 4 o'clock planning committee meeting, because you're gonna hear me and I believe our zoning officer talking to the committee about what we should be doing.
That's good on you.
I want to address a little bit more about the sound, and Switch kind of went around with this stuff as far as decibels, but this isn't about decibels, this is about low frequency. And I would encourage everyone here to get online, search for scientific studies on the damage that low frequency does to our bodies, to our minds, to our environment, One of the things with the sound thing, if you know someone who is in the autistic spectrum, very often they are very sensitive to sounds. This will set them off. There are studies that show that kids that don't have that are becoming more disruptive in school, as that was addressed earlier. And I'm a retired mental health therapist. I know that those low frequencies can affect people's mental health. These are very serious problems. And I think we all need to do more research on that, and that needs to be addressed. And one of the things at the switch meeting is that their engineer said something about leaving trees up as barriers for the sound. Okay, my aunt lives 6 miles south of here. Those trees didn't stop the racetrack sound. And low frequency just goes right through that stuff. You know, your example about feeling it in the table. And it could be a killer, literally.
May I explain low frequency in 2 minutes, because it's a real technical issue. You can go online trying to read about it. I can explain layman terms in 2 minutes.
Yeah. Give that man a microphone.
I can
Talking
speak
about noise. Mike.
Low frequency sound, which is actually called scientifically infrasound, is very interesting and very concerning, and it's not being addressed anywhere in our zoning ordinance or by Switch. And that question came to Switch when they had their meeting here 2 weeks ago. I'll tell you what infrasound is. Infrasound means it's sound frequencies that are very low frequencies set by scientists to be 20 hertz or lower frequency, and that is a kind of sound that people can't hear. And it's a kind of sound that has very long wavelengths. So let's compare a big ocean wave that's infrasound. And let's talk about little ripples coming on a beach. That's the sound that you can measure acoustically. The little ripples, if you're sitting on the beach, your foot could stop a little ripple. And trees can stop the sound emanating from a data center by trees. However, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the infrasound. Their waves are huge. The sounds we can hear are in the 5 to 10 feet range of how long those waves are. So if you picture a wave like that, audible sound maybe is 5 feet or 10 feet long. Infrasound is measured in hundreds of feet, maybe 100 feet or 200 feet long. So just like the long, powerful ocean waves can knock over a big dock and just keep on going, whereas the acoustical ripples that you can hear are stopped easily, that's what's been found to come from data centers. And during the last 2 years, there's been a lot of scientific studies being shown. So here in Beaver, if the infrasound is leaving, it's too late. The horse has gone out of the barn because that infrasound will go over any wall they want to put up, it goes over any forest, and it will, listen to this carefully, it will travel underground also. Now, the only way you can stop infrasound before it gets to its destination, I'll tell you what happens once it gets to its destination. We don't want that to happen. But according to our zoning ordinance, that's exactly what will happen, because our zoning ordinance doesn't have any restriction, limits, or measurements for infrasound. It only concerns the sound we can hear. So having said that, you have to stop it before it leaves the data center. And there's actually very reliable engineering means and mechanical means you can do that I'm not gonna get into now to stop it, but that's not part of the data center business plan, because that they have to spend another 0.5% on their construction costs. Now, this is what happens when you let the infrasound go. It keeps on going until its energy is zapped. 2 miles out, it might hit a house, and the house starts absorbing the energy from that big wave coming at it. People can't hear it, but when you hear about the humming, some people detect some humming. The animals seem to respond really negatively toward it. And the houses, like we heard somebody mention, have a slight vibration. And after being subjected to that for several years, the house actually is unlivable because it's actually rattled to the point where it's falling apart in a couple of years. So, and that's not the only concern, but having spoken about infrasound, which is such a big threat if it's not checked, and we're not doing anything to check it, that's not the only one we can talk about, which I won't do now, but that's a good example because it's something we can all understand, and it's something that we have no protection against. And that's all I have to say. If anyone wants to know more about infrasound, I can see me after the meeting.
I will just throw it out there. Your ordinance could do something about infrasound. They could require that a noise study be done. They could set limits on those kinds of things. Those are all available to the municipality as tools if they chose to do it.
It's like DBC and DBG instead of DBA.
Exactly. Yeah, so everything's normally measured in dBA. That's sort of our audio sound. DBC is the infrasound, and you can set limits on that. You can require the company to do a noise management plan based around that. Set nuisance ordinances if they were to avoid that. So just throwing it out there as a tool for you all to know that your municipal leaders could, if they so choose, deal with infrasound.
There was a question over here in this mirror.
Yep. You're up. I'm getting your mic. Oh, 1 second.
I only raised my hand because I had a comment regarding the mayor's limitations. The mayor is a non-voting member of council and really is in charge of the police department. So that was just my comment.
I appreciate that clarification.
I think the next one over here, and then we'll get to who's in the back. You're doing a great job, Matt.
Thanks, Sam. Getting dinner after this, right?
Hi, I'm a big Beaver resident. My name is Kathy. I have a question about taxes. And when I read about the Switch Corporation Center, data center in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I think, the Pyramid Center, they have not, to my understanding, paid local taxes because of a state agreement that was specially created for them. Is there any rumblings about such activity in Pennsylvania, and how has Switch presented any potential tax base benefits to Big Beaver Borough?
I know that a lot of states will subsidize these developments because they want them in. Counties will do the same thing, as well as municipalities. I've seen municipalities waive property taxes, right, waive interconnection fees, like all sorts of different things in order to try and incentivize people to develop in those spaces. I don't know the details about that Michigan one. It could be that they're not technically paying anything because the state is covering those costs. The local municipality could have waived them because they wanted to make it more, enticing for the developer. I'm, don't know the details, but there are many ways that municipalities will shoot themselves in the foot to try and get the developers to come here. I mean, Shell Cracker Plant's a great example. The county went above and beyond trying to entice them to come here, and then, oh my God, there's actual pollution and no jobs. What? It's all right.
Yeah, and something that's worth mentioning, when Natalie came and talked about what Switch is gonna bring to bear as a, what's in it for you, Big Beaver County, they proudly endorsed the sales tax and the purchase of the property of just shy of $500,000 as tax revenue, right? So they're trying to come forward and show the tax revenue stream as a what's in it for Big Beaver. I think that there's also a great question for us to ask of council of other companies that have come in like Lindy Paving and Mitsubishi, what has been the precedent set of taxes then? And you probably know better than I, but I don't believe Lindy Paving, have they paid taxes? Will they pay taxes for the first 7 years of their investment here? I don't believe so. Mitsubishi, I think, has a similar kind of relationship where they've been given a no tax 7-year continuance to be able to build in Big Beaver. We're not a part of the conversations with Switch. Your council is, and that's according to Switch. So we don't know what has been communicated as a promise. We do know that Switch is using that lever of tax revenue as an incentive to you all, right? So that's why I wanted to answer that in the way that I did, because they were making a tax promise to pay. But again, we want to look on historical behavior of what council has done in the past. And again, they're letting a lot of brands not pay taxes to be neighbors of you. Okay?
We have Tim next, then I love that shirt, by the way. So we'll go Goose, and then we'll come over here and get and then Laura after you.
I just wanted to just give further perspective on infrasound. There are animals that basically communicate via infrasound. This is not industrial equipment. For example, elephants communicate via infrasound, and that communication range is about 3 to 7 miles via air and close to 20 miles seismically. We're talking about an animal that is just walking on ground, not industrial equipment that's bolted to the ground.
So we're gonna get to Mr. England. We're gonna go to Laura afterwards, and then come lady in a moment.
I was just curious, how much fuel did you say the generator was going to use per hour?
35,000 gallons.
And where is this going to be stored?
That's a very good question.
And how many trucks are going to be required to bring that fuel
So-
in? And diesel fuel in storage will decay, so it has to be replenished, even if it's not used. And my concern would be, are they gonna have these massive fuel tanks up there on this hill? And God forbid there's some kind of an incident. How many fire departments are we gonna have to respond and take care of this? And how many people are going to have to evacuate? I mean, look what happened in East Palestine 3 years ago.
Sure, absolutely.
And, I have a slight background in dealing with hazmat incidents, and believe me, my instructor said the safest place to be is 30 miles that way, not next door to it. So my concern here, the sound is a big deal, that's gonna be a constant. But that one lightning strike, that one mistake, down in Valvoline years ago, we had a contractor welding on a fuel tank. and blew the whole bloody thing up. And I saw that, I was in the rail yard at the time. And that went on for days down there. So this is gonna be a lot of fuel.
Sure. No, you're 100% correct. So your diesel fuel is heavier than gasoline. Your typical tanker truck holds, a large tanker will hold 9,000 gallons of fuel. So you figure if these things have to run for 24 hours, 800,000 gallons of fuel, they need 100 tankers a day to fuel these things. 100 tractor trailer tanker trucks a day.
What's that gonna do to your roads?
Oh, it's absolutely. What's it gonna do to our roads, fuel costs, and to the gentleman's point, where are they gonna store all this fuel?
We're also gonna talk a little bit about lithium.
Yeah, and that is something that, Dan brought up a good point. They are absolutely going to want to use lithium battery technology for backup systems. We
I'm
don't
letting
know.
in, they just tabled at the last council meeting, changing an ordinance for storage of lithium batteries.
To allow lithium
Yes.
batteries.
So think of that going to be in our neighborhood. We don't have any fire
And
departments.
again, it's unfathomable the amount of batteries that they need. So think about, if, the battery in your car, okay? A good battery is 100 amp hours. And what did we say earlier? They're gonna use 12,000 million watts. They would need essentially 1.2 million car batteries is what the size of the battery storage that they're going to need. And I'm sure you've all seen videos of Teslas catching on fire and these big battery facilities catching on fire. The firefighters just let them burn because
Yeah, it's also.
a lot of places that is the policy because they're so harmful to the firefighters. The firefighters are more important than that car, facility, etc. But while these things are burning, all that's going up into the air.
I love that we're getting more and more questions. Well, let me get to Laura in the back first, she asked for a while, and then we're gonna come to.
And then the young lady behind Marty.
Thank you. I have a few comments and a couple of questions for the legal and permitting process. But first of all, I just want to give a huge kudos to the OG Safe Pit Race crew and all of the work that you guys did early on in organizing and learning. It was a huge learning curve, and you know, the effort that you guys made has just been incredible. The amount of time that you've invested in this. I just want to thank you on behalf of the 160,000 residents in Beaver County. So thank you very much for all of that. A couple of comments that I have pertaining to the local planning committee / council members / mayor of Big Beaver Borough would be that it is a small community. There's 750 households, I believe you stated earlier. And that being said, there is, you know, maybe something that the council could do pertaining to the engineering and solicitor that is on staff that they have appointed, which I would encourage you as citizens of the borough to request a third-party engineering firm, a third-party attorney, solicitor, someone that is specialized in data centers, in tonal noise, in whatever engineering need that you have in order to really prepare yourselves for the future which is what I wanna ask about, which are the appeals process. And I was just wondering, Tim, if you could kind of walk us through, first of all, if there were to be a public hearing, if there were to be some type of appeal process, how that looks at the Court of Common Pleas and then the higher up process. Because I think it's really important to emphasize this is an appeal, this is not a lawsuit.
Yeah, so the way that it works in Pennsylvania is that these decisions are made at the local municipal level, right, to approve. Now, what you would like is to have either a special exception or a conditional use where there are these hearings, right? Because what ends up happening is that at the hearings, you develop the record, right? The testimony, the evidence, the experts that are put on, right? That all happens at that local level. Now, if this is a permitted use, you don't have any of that, right? Then it's just, we're allowed to do this, check, 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 and they get their permit, they're allowed to do it. So if it does need to get appealed, then it gets, you file with the zoning hearing board or the board of commissioners and the Court of Common Pleas. The local municipality then has to develop that record. What are the transcripts of those hearings? What evidence was shown? What exhibits were entered into? What were the comments of all of the people? And you're stuck with that, right? I've come into situations where I'm coming in on the appeals level, and I'm left with whatever happened below. I don't get to bring in new witnesses. I could have the best engineer in the world who would be able to testify and say that this is a terrible thing. I can't get them in, right? Because you're stuck with that level. And at that point, it becomes, the standard that we're looking at that point is abuse of discretion. Did the decision that is made at the local level, was it based on no facts in the record? Right? Did they have no basis for that decision? Which is a hard standard to overcome, right? Which is why those local level hearings are really important. They are the fact finders. The appeals court is never, very, 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 very rarely going to say, you're wrong about the facts, right? You believed that expert instead of that. How did you do that? You're not allowed to do that. The appeals court isn't going to go there. They're going to say, hey, we weren't there. You listened to two different people speak about the same topic and you chose to believe one. Okay, that's where it is. All right, so I do encourage you to go in and put your best foot forward at that local level in whatever form that you can in order to get those facts on the record to make it an appeal tenable after that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, a bit. And then the second part to the appeals process that I had a question pertaining to is the Department of Environmental Protection and the Environmental Hearing Board, I believe is who you would appeal to. And so, these things often become a matter of standing and who lives within 100 yards, 300 yards, right? Or like you have to show that that you have standing in these cases. And so how do you address that in a community situation where there's impact that goes beyond that, peripheral boundary?
Yeah, so standing is a legal term. Essentially, you have to be able to show that you were injured by whatever happened. Injury, that you sustained an injury, it's caused by something that you can point to, and redressability, right? The court can do something to fix it. In zoning cases, generally they say that, immediate people surrounding the property would have standing, right? Now, it doesn't mean that those are the only people that would, right? If you can show an injury and you're 3 miles away because you can show that there's going to be infrasound and that's what you're there for, you can use that to show your injury and get standing in the courts yourself. The other way is through great organizations such as BBA and Motorsports, who can do what's called organizational standing. Now, Thrumps would actually have a difficult time doing it because they are meant to be here for motorsports preservation. And part of organizational standing requires that the organization, their purpose is germane to the situation, right? The BBA founded around data center problems, germane to the organization. Thrumps, not so much, right? So they would actually probably not be able to get organizational standing. But BBA would be able to, as long as one of their members also has standing. As long as one of you says, I'm a member of BBA, I live right there, and you're willing to go up on the stand and do that and say, this is going to affect me, then they get organizational standing and they can kind of handle those appeals and handle those lawsuits. And all you would need to do is either an affidavit or maybe show up one day to court and say, yep, I live there, this bothers me, and I'm a member of the organization. So, given that, there is also the process with the EHB for those appeals. So the local land use decisions are at this, at the Court of Common Pleas. That's where you appeal those to. Any of the other permitting decisions that we've been talking about, the erosion and sedimentation control plan, the post-construction stormwater management, discharge, effluent discharge permits, air permitting, all of those, when the DEP approves them, you would have a 30-day period to appeal that to the EHB. And the EHB is the Environmental Hearing Board. They are a specialized court that only hears those cases. And so all their judges are experts at environmental issues and permitting and those kinds of things.
So I just want to be an encouragement to the residents that are here and just resound again the importance of your involvement, the importance of your attendance, the importance of you setting the record very early on, attending the meetings regardless of what's on the agenda. You speak up and you use your allotted time. Do it at the committee meetings, do it at the council meetings, go to the county planning commission meeting, and go to the county commissioner meeting, and continue to show up in numbers, because you will have power in numbers. And do not get discouraged when they tell you you're at the wrong meeting, this isn't on the agenda, we're not gonna talk about that today, that meeting was last week. You use your voice and you use your Sunshine Act ability to speak regardless of what is on the agenda. You have the right to make a 3-minute public comment or whatever that time is. Hopefully you don't get to that point where you have to appeal to the Court of Common Pleas or to the Environmental Hearing Board. These are very, very expensive legal litigation measures, and you will be in $50,000 to $100,000 per appeal, per permit, and it goes, then you can appeal the Court of Common Pleas decision, you can go to the Commonwealth and up to the state. And the same thing with the Environmental Hearing Board. If you don't like the decision that the board has made on a permit, you can then appeal that on up as well. And so the litigation process gets very lengthy and very expensive, and that is when citizens do get defeated. So I don't want you guys to get there. I want you to just have the momentum that you've had since October. Right now, you do have the upper hand. Nothing has been technically applied for to the Big Beaver borough. So you guys keep doing it, and yeah, thank you for all your effort. Thank you.
I was amazed at the big numbers on the oil, the generators. And I worked in a small mill, and we had a number of standby generators. And these would be standby generators. I'm surprised here it does say diesel backup. What we had was natural gas, and I don't know why they wouldn't run those off of natural gas. It has become some kind of that just does not sound practical to me.
That was something that the gentleman standing up here said, someone had mentioned that at the switch meeting, is, hey, why aren't we using gas generators? He said, absolutely not.
Okay, I missed that. Yeah. Okay.
Common sense doesn't always prevail.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing.
I think we're going to the young lady behind Marty, and then.
I have a big mouth, so I don't need that. I have a comment and a question. The engineer at the SWIFT meeting assured us that those lithium batteries could never catch on fire. So we don't have to worry about that.
Sure.
He wouldn't lie.
Right.
And my question piggybacks on his, is we live on Carywood, and at the end, they've been doing a lot at the gas pump station there. And when we haven't been here that long, so we're not like in on the scoop where everybody knows what's going on. And when we first moved here, I believe we've been here almost 5 years. So I believe they had just put that in. Well, like the last couple months, weekends and everything, they've been working there, and now they're not. And that's what I was thinking, are they gonna hook that into that natural gas?
We don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, but was my concern too, when you said that was, right there's natural gas. These generators should be able to run on that too, why can't they use that instead of all the diesel? And I don't know what their objection is to that, but it was just kind of suspicious, just like all of a sudden they put in all the new electric lines and, well, guess what? Here comes the data center.
Yeah.
We're blind, we're not blind.
And so one of the things that we can point to is fact, is that AES, which is a known company in your area, has built and has a ton of natural gas infrastructure. I think they have a substation that's essentially a small natural gas plant. They've got tons of conduit around here. They are also a brand that went to several homeowners saying, hey, I would like to purchase your property because they were working to support the Switch data center. And so we don't know much more beyond that, but I do know from sources that they have been doing a lot with what property they own to develop and redevelop. I also know that many of the different offers that they made to purchase property have also gone away. I'm going to make a opinion-based statement. We've already heard a second data center brand. It was Provident, now it's Switch. And Natalie communicated that Provident showed initial interest, as evidenced by their president signing off on purchasing Cranberries, right? But Switch came in as a backup, so there's already something kind of changing there.
Yeah.
Right? So potentially maybe the scope. Excuse me?
Could you use a microphone?
Oh, sure. I don't have my big boy voice anymore.
So we already know that there's a change of plans, and nothing has, materialized yet. So there's a lot that's up in the air, right? And there's different names, there's different brands, there's a lot of gray. There's not much black and white in this. It's true, right? But the biggest thing that we can do as a form of deterrent, again, is more of this, right? So that you're going to see, I'm just gonna use this as a good segue. You're gonna hear Big Beaver Alliance, putting on different events, trying to be active in the community, educate. But all of you here, I think you tell me if I'm wrong in saying this, are leaving way more educated than when you came to the Switch meeting. Right? And we now know who to connect with and what actions we can take individually and communally to start to do something. Because if we don't do anything, right, I will say, and Laura, I appreciate your kudos. I frankly think that we are putting pressure on them, right? And their inactivity is confirmation of that. When you see experts brought to bear, what other communities are doing this, right?
They're coming to our little community, so we're making noise.
Thank these guys.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, we gotta keep it up. And then also, there's petitions that are signed. I would really encourage everyone here. What I'd like to do is do questions for 10 to 15 minutes to manage everyone's time. So if anybody has anything hot, let's prioritize them. We're gonna hang around. But everyone in the yellow shirts, get with them, exchange your contact information. If you feel as though you wanna participate, please become active in the group. I'll tell you from the through our MPS, the house side of things, you know, we've got a core group of leadership, and I'm so lucky that when you see all these men and women around me, you know, we've been doing this for 9 months. Everyone, this doesn't end until November of next year. What happens November of next year? You guys go to vote, right? That is the remedy to this. God bless this man. He has made the point to me, like how many times, Tim?
1,000?
Yeah, right? It's your elected officials, right? And now these are your neighbors. I know you have relationships with them. I 1,000% get that. But like everything you're doing right now is pressure. All of it gets remedied in November of next year, right? And that's when you really have your voice. And so the biggest thing in all of this is to talk to your neighbor. Tell them what you learned tonight. Get engaged. Pull the levers, the phone numbers, the texts, the emails, do all of it. Get loud, right? All the Thrumps people, what I always say at the end of our meetings, get loud, right? Because that's how we can stop this. At the very minimum, what needs to happen is that if they're going to build a $1.5 billion misery-making machine in your backyard, you all better get paid. Right? That's the truth of living in Appalachia. West Virginia is the most mineral-rich state in the 50. It has the lowest per person wealth or income. How? Because people don't get loud, right? This is exploitative investment. Only way you fight it is get loud, right? Let's go with some other questions. Thank you for.
I just wanted to just follow up on that point because they literally look for communities that they don't think are going to fight back, right? And when she spoke and said, you know, one of these appeals might cost the community, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand, it costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Because they're getting the most expensive lawyers and whole teams of them. And so when the communities start to fight back, those kinds of things get factored into their ledger books, right? The politics change, the financials change regularly. And so the more that you fight, the more that you can put up that resistance, the more their opinions about the feasibility of the project as a whole can change. And we've seen it happen with oil and gas infrastructure, we've seen it happen with developments, subdivisions, all sorts of things. So distribution centers we've seen canceled because of public pushback, time, money, but it's you that makes the change.
Okay, I just have a question, a legal question as well. So in April of this year, on the agenda online on the Big Beaver Borough website, Ordinance 248 was adopted, and that's adopting the 2024 edition of the International Property and Maintenance Code. And according to the Property and Maintenance Code, it says any appeals will be decided by the Beaver County Regional Council of Governments, who Nate Morgan, who also was appointed as zoning hearing board attorney for Big Beaver Borough, is also a part of that Big Beaver County Regional Council of Governments. So I don't understand how that's not a conflict of interest.
And the county commissioner solicitor.
Right.
So there very well may be. You know, it sounds like, I have not read this, I don't know exactly, and you're making me do some legal analysis on the fly, but that's how we do it. So it sounds to me like they're putting in another step of an appeal before you get to the Court of Common Pleas. They can't keep you from getting to the Court of Common Pleas, it looks like.
Okay, I am on the board where they come and we decide whether you can get your variances or you're not getting your variances. I never knew we changed attorneys. I just want you to know that. I never knew a thing. That was just our attorney retired due to health things, and the next thing I know is we have this new Nate. That was not, like I said, I have no idea, and I've been on the hearing board for 2 years. And we don't have that many hearings, I can tell you that. But the last one I abstained from because it was my daughter. So I abstained from that, and that was when they put the new attorney on there. Because Garrett is the, what do we call you, the alternate?
Yes.
Yes. So,
Yeah,
that's,
I mean, it sounds like there's not very great communication. If it does ultimately go to an appeal on one of those bodies, then it would be comment and speak out. This is a conflict of interest. You're deciding an appeal, and you shouldn't, you have a hand in it for whatever reason, potentially getting them kicked off of it. Regardless, it would still end up going up to the Court of Common Pleas, where you would, sever all of those potential conflicts of interest. And so if they make a bad decision that is then upheld by another bad decision, you would still be able to go to the Court of Common Pleas and have somebody who is hopefully not directly involved making that decision. But they can't take away that level. That's what it sounds like to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I am the person that Cindy earlier alluded to that lives 100 yards away. I am not the closest. I have other neighbors that actually live closer to that back fence. One of my questions is, myself and some of our surrounding neighbors feel that we don't really have a voice because we don't live in Big Beaver Borough. We don't even live in Beaver County. What can we do? We are one of the closest communities to this, and what do we do to have our say?
So from a legal perspective, you would still be affected, right? You would still have standing as a neighbor. Almost every borough, county that I've ever dealt with would give you the right to speak about something that is bordering your property, even if you live outside of it. They should grant you the right to go and be heard. And if they don't, give me a call. That wouldn't sit well with me. I might have to have a talk with them.
And then I do have one other question about the infrasound. And I don't know, I'm sure everyone here is aware, there are a lot of mine shafts that run under the property. Under Pit Race, under my house, under the neighbors' homes. How is this infrasound gonna affect these mine shafts? How many homes are gonna end up collapsing from this?
Yeah, so that's gonna be one of those hard spots where you would need to get an expert, right? You would need to get an expert on, mine integrity and how that might.
They're blacked out.
Yeah, they're blacked out.
You can't
Because
even
the
get
government
mine
has stuff down
subsidence
there.
insurance.
They won't even sell us mine subsidence insurance because we can't prove. We know they're there because at night, I'm telling you, like around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, you feel the house shake.
You feel
It's
the
the semis
vibrations.
down there in the ground. They're driving down there. You can feel the vibe. And this is semi. This isn't a data center. This is semi. And you can feel the vibration. It's slight, but it's crazy. It's like
It's like a
it's
tremor
an
from an
earthquake.
earthquake.
And it's not. It's the trucks running down
So,
there.
so we know the shafts are there, but we can't prove it because it's all blacked out because the government owns part of those mine shafts.
Right. And they've got stuff down there that we're not supposed to know.
And, 'cause we've checked into getting mine subsidence insurance, and we can't even because it's all blacked out.
Those are some odd circumstances. Having trouble with that one.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
Yeah, all
based on
mine.
when we first moved there like 15 years ago. We were checking into it, and even our neighbor said, you can check into it, but we can't get it.
Yeah.
So we looked, and sure enough, when you try to pull up the maps for the mines, they're not there.
Yeah, it's blacked out.
yeah, I'm not, that's outside my.
I would love to, and this is one of the cool things, we have 100 people in the room. Someone has a nephew, a cousin, a friend
who is a sound technician and can measure sound, has the instruments. It's been incredible how many amazingly talented people I have met over the last 9-10 months through this whole process. So I would love to find someone and have them come and do baseline readings around your home. And the reason for that being is that defines a beginning. And if we get to an end, there's a data center around, that allows for us to have evidence that shows a before and an after, right? Because remember, obviously data centers have been around for years, because we've been computing and on the internet for generations, right? I do get that, but the level of data center we have seen over the last 10 years is unique and different to what predated it. We can all agree on that. So we still don't know all of the different effects to these centers, but also, we may not also know how these data centers react to things like these mines. Because this is new to Western Pennsylvania, right? They typically build in the middle of nowhere or in flat areas. And now we're going into a topography that's completely different. So they might be, as an industry, stepping into new worlds. That might be something that, like, let's make sure we exchange contact information and let's figure out how we can have that data point. Because one thing that Tim is communicating is if you can show harm, you have cause to sue, right? So that means
We heard it had to be after the data center was built and opened up, then we could file a lawsuit against what they're doing was. You understand that's after the fact though? That's
I
not
know.
prior to, that's afterwards.
I know.
Then we could file a lawsuit.
I know. Here's the thing. We live by the adage of throwing a lot of pancakes on the wall and seeing what sticks, right? Everyone who's worked with me in the past 9 months, I will task people with different directions, and if 30% of it actually holds something, that is why we're here today. Does that make sense? We don't have, there's no silver bullet, right? I've asked. What we have to do is to pursue every avenue, right? So that, and the only true remedy, repeat if we remember, is November of next year, right? That is the only true remedy. But we've got a lot of time between then and now, and I want to make sure we're as prepared as possible, because again, where our interest is to do as much as we can to protect you guys from this. Does that make sense?
I just may say one quick thing. Yes, when it comes to November as well, with the electoral work, I can disappear from Food and Water Watch and put on my Food and Water Action hat if somebody is motivated to run for office as Food and Water Action. That is our C4 arm. So, but I can't do both at once, but I'm just saying, when somebody is interested and that time does come, Food and Water Action can help you with that piece.
Is there anyone else? She's next.
There's a sign.
Oh, that's okay,
And
I'm
we're
pretty
gonna
loud.
do
Yeah.
like
I'm
6
trying to
more
keep this
minutes
short
of
because we're all hot and tired. I live on Naily Hill over here, I have a shallow well, old shallow well, I lost my water last winter for 4 months. And I learned a whole lot, and, but not to mention being faced with having to abandon my home, because who's gonna buy a house with no water? New well between 10 and 15,000, and that is if they get the first aquifer, which leads to glaciers. Okay, the glaciers, we are a moraine for the glacier, and the glacier left us all these aquifers, which is where we get our water. The municipal water suppliers, not just well owners, but they depend on the same watersheds, and water basins, and aquifers that we depend on. And this place, before they even build their own power plant, which they talk about, they're using thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of water from the same resources, because even if they get it from the municipal's getting it upstream, just like us from the Great Lakes, et cetera, et cetera. If they build their own power plant, it'll be millions of gallons of water. And what are we gonna do? $10,000 to $15,000 for a well, that's fine, but that's only until they hit the first aquifer, and there's no guarantee. Once they get down the road, they're not coming back. So, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It comes down to water, because your house is
how are you gonna sell your house?
You got
Real
no
estate
water,
values,
you
as
can't.
soon as they go, ain't gonna go down. Who's
Well,
gonna wanna
and-
live near that?
Even you said about drilling a well doesn't really solve your issue because your water into your well has to come from somewhere.
I had a
Right.
geologist out, like something you were saying, cause you can go online and almost every county is undermined with coal mines.
Mhm.
Like you were saying about
Yeah,
the
Beaver
shaft.
County's
So
real bad.
I had a geologist came out and, to look for subsidence. And, cause there could be something done if they could relate it to, you know, one of the mine shafts or, the maps are incredible. It's everything, every farm, everything undermined. There, I couldn't find any place that wasn't, maybe sheets. But, but anyway, yeah, that's all I wanted to say was to make that point, cause nobody's talking about water, like water for your toilet, or a rain
Well,
barrel.
and to what you're saying, you go on YouTube and just type in water pressure near data center,
Oh,
right? One of the sidebar, one of my favorite things from tonight is that like all of the environmental truths, when they're really bad, you notice how Amanda's head goes, that's all I know personally, like, well, that's bad. Her head's been going up and down a lot, so, but like, it affects everything, right?
There's no borough, no houses if we don't have water.
Right.
So the council can do whatever they want, but if they don't have a tax base,
Yeah, they're gonna be,
then they have to be.
true. Thank you for sharing, it's such an important point,
I just don't understand all
yeah.
this legalism and, you know, having to reinvent the wheel, but many other communities have all thought.
Mhm. I think our next, thank you, our next question was over
I
yonder.
just had a comment on the thing with mines. Is that something that's ground penetrating radar? Or something like that?
Do you know someone who's got ground
No,
penetrating
but
radar?
I'm just asking if that might be.
I feel like there's a great conversation that's starting between the four of us, and that's something that we'll need to figure out, because there's a whole, that's one of the reasons why it's good for us to meet as a community and talk, because there's a lot that comes up in these conversations. We had I think our last question was going to be over here. There's a hand up, unless I'm having a fever dream, which is entirely possible. Does anybody else have any other questions? Please.
I'm a resident of Big Beaver, been here 51 years, and it's what type of EMFs, what level will be emitted from that data center? Because if they're using lithium batteries, then the electromagnetic field will come from them. And so that's on the other spectrum of the low frequency, this is gonna be a higher frequency. And so have they said anything about what levels those will be?
Certainly not.
No.
But to your point, it's just like, living under high tension wires.
Right.
They've proven that living under high tension wires is not healthy. But, yeah, you're gonna experience the same effect.
Amanda, do you know anything in that direction? Okay, it might be something, I mean, these people have a great network, and so I see her taking notes, and Betty knows notes, so do you wanna know someone who has that answer? That's something that we can find out. I think Amanda, you pointed me in the direction of Hold the Harm.
Yeah, Halt the Harm Network is a national level organization that anyone can sign up for. They'll make sure that you're a real person, but you can ask questions. So there's, Dan asked if anybody else lives near another switch data center, or if you have very technical, specific questions about wells, groundwater mines, getting to field those out. It's another forum that's been created for people to connect over. Halt the Harm Network. Yes, Halt. Thank you. Sorry, Halt the Harm Network.
Yeah, and then one of the things that I would encourage, what's the name of the Facebook group, Big Beaver Alliance Against Data Centers?
Yes.
If you're on Facebook, you go to Big Beaver Alliance Against Data Centers and just friend the group. Amanda has provided, Robin has provided, Tim has provided a lot of resource
we can, make through that page, those resources known, because the more of us do research and look into this, that forum has been great, because you can reach out to other communities that are answering the questions that we're dealing with, because they're 6, 12, 18 months ahead of us in their life experience with data centers. So,
I know when they're building highways and everything, they'll come and whatever that old law is, something domain.
eminent domain?
Can they, like if we fight them, can they do anything like that, so and say, we're gonna come up and, we want your property, we don't care what you say, we're gonna give you this much, take it or leave it. Can they do that?
Well, that would be a really scary precedent. I'll let the attorney answer that question.
That's above my pay grade, I saw that.
So eminent domain can be, it's a means for the state to take stuff that they need for utilities. Highways use it a lot. I have never heard of data centers or even telecommunications lines being granted eminent domain status in and of themselves, right? Sometimes electric utilities have been. Once in a while, an antenna is allowed to go in, like a communications antenna, have gone in because they say, hey, we've got no coverage here, and this is where we need to put it, and they've eminent domain for those purposes. I haven't heard of it for a data center, and shut off that camera. No. Bad idea. No. I don't think they're going to go that direction.
I do think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think I'm on the train of thought that you're on, which is there a political or state silver bullet? And that's where Robin comes in, right? Because the reason why that's a silver bullet is what Katie is pushing is that moratorium for 3 years is critical. Because as we're seeing other communities where they have like a healthy council and a good rapport, they're building in dozens of pages of protection of their ordinance language. They're taking on that, but that 3-year moratorium, I think a big component of it is also gives communities times where if they don't have elected officials that are going to protect them, they've got the time to find the elected officials to work with them to protect them, right? That's why it's not 6, 12, 18, it's a full 3 years. So that you can find the people who are going to, and Tim, you put it right correctly, they're your employees in the sense that they're elected officials, you hire them, that's your vote, right? So like, that's so critical, what Robin's piece is so critical, because if we're going to have a quick remedy to this, it is in her sphere, right? What Amanda brings to bear is that when we go to the permitting side, we've got her and her group of mercenaries to pull on so that when we go to permits, we can go in with evidence. And with Tim, his superpower is the legal, so if we do need to go to court, that's not just a good looking man, that's a strong brain between 2 ears, right? So we've got, silly. But the point of the fact is, like guys, we've got bench strength, right? We've got Marty, right? Like we've got Sandy, we've got some incredibly talented people amongst this community. Good luck, Switch. Right? That's the point.
Yeah, I live right adjoining the track. My neighbor has 66 acres. He borders the track. I border the Empire Woodville substation. Empire is selling 160 acres of unusable land, which borders the racetrack. And my neighbor just found out, no letter, no nothing, zoning officer drove up in October and says, your land now is industrial. No industrial. He had no say. Yeah, he's not here, he's on vacation, but just to know that they're trying, and the neighbor across from me, they tried to buy his land, but he refused, which borders Empire and the track. They're trying to buy up all the land.
Yeah, they can buy our house, we'll rent off of them.
Yeah, no, and that's,
If ever, so SafePitRace.org still exists as a website, and it's worth going to, because we've documented everything. And one of the things that we documented was a fever dream that I had. The very first meeting that we went to, they did a bunch of ordinance changes, and it's literally a conduit to Stonecrest, which is outside of Big Beaver. But all of it went from mixed use to industrial, and it is just a conduit between us and other communities around you. What does that tell you? And what have we heard about Stonecrest?
Yeah, that's the
Right?
same. Yeah, that's involved too.
Now, I only say this now you've been experiencing me for 2.5 years, so again, I apologize for my sense of humor. He's got the same sense of humor. He wanted to make me a hat that said, like, we knew, right? And the reason for it being is that in October, we were publicly saying, they don't just want to build one, they want to build an alley. And that's what they learned in Loudoun, Virginia. So why the connection between us and Loudoun? Great question, let me answer it. Does anybody know who PJM is? The electrical infrastructure that First Energy and other companies all work with, and they are all connected. At one end of PJM is Loudoun, Virginia. At the other end, us. So what does that tell you? All of these different companies that have been making so many billions of dollars over the last 10 years were kicked out of Virginia, said, where else can we go? Let's go as far away as we can so that these people don't know. And here they are, trying to build another data center alley, but now with us, right? If you've, like, and here's the reality, we've all experienced this being in Western Pennsylvania, whether it's been fracking, whether it's a petrochemical plant, whatever it is. It's, again, trying to use up natural resources to make big money. It's nothing new. It's just a different formula of the same thing, right? So that's the gist.
In going to all the different municipality meetings that I've been invited to, they are starting down Shippingport and Midland. They're coming up through us. They're going, looking at Stonecrest. They're going up into Newcastle. I just read an article where they are attempting to put one right smack dab behind Mohawk High School. They're just going right up, like he says, just making an alleyway. And it was Hookstown, Shippingport, Midland. I think they were looking at something in Hopewell also. But I mean, they're just coming up through. So I mean, we're going, that's why we have to fight as a community. We have to fight as Beaver County and Lawrence County.
What's the radius?
Yeah, like, I mean, how far is this going to affect us? People who watch it in New Stokely Township, are they going to be affected?
Well, here's the reality. How expensive is your electricity right now today?
That's ridiculous.
Well, the rest of us who
But
weren't.
I'm still paying $200 and something a month for solar panels, so I should have maybe just stayed without.
Well, the point is, we have seen the cost of electricity go up significantly over the last 18 months. And that's a part of the PJM infrastructure, right? Because when they suck so much energy out of the system, even if they're making offsetting energy, the cost of creating the infrastructure itself will still get passed on to the consumer. That's a part of what Shapiro and others in Harrisburg are trying to do, which is appreciated. They're trying to negate that infrastructure cost, but we're all paying it, right? And no matter what, it's a speculative market. So if you can make more money, you're gonna make more money. The point is that the length of this thing, if you really think about it because of the conflicts, it is that big. Because think about east of the state, they're free-firing 3 Mile Island to fuel one of these things. The American Chernobyl, right, is being refired, the literal reactor where it happened, it's being refired for this. And that's a part of our ecosystem, right? Now, again, it's Monday, it's 8:45. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I think now, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but this is probably a good time to call it. The 14-year-old's like, yep, I gotta go. So,
Dan, one more thing, as you go, if you would be so kind, because we have to put all these chairs away, I'm gonna have Randy and somebody else down there where the chairs go, you just take your chair at least so that we're not here till midnight.
and final item, thank you for being here. I look forward to meeting more of you. My friend circle just got so much bigger. This is the first of many times we're gonna interact, okay? So thank you for being here and taking an interest, and again, get with someone with a yellow shirt so that we can get you plugged in, but have a great night.